I come from the African Center for Meteorological Applications for Development, created by UN Economic Commission for Africa and the World Meteorological Organizations to produce weather and climate information and develop application of this information in different development sectors. We are running a project called Monitoring of the Environment for Security in Africa, which basically develop climate services for disaster risk reduction in Africa with two services: drought and seasonal climate forecast, and then a climate change assessment service.
What kind of people can use those information that you produce? Is it supposed to be used by politics, by leaders, and by bosses of big companies?
Yeah, we have three levels of users. The first level is the policymakers in disaster risk reduction, the national platforms for disaster risk reduction that were established with the DRR program, and at the regional level, decision makers in regional economic communities in Africa, and at the end, the countries and farmers. There is the climate change assessment service specifically is dedicated to support technically, with technical advice, the African group of negotiators on climate change.
Okay, what about Africa? In which way Africa can make better its participation to the fight against climate change?
The first point is that Africa is very much interested in developing climate resilience, and the most impacted people in Africa are the so-called smallholder farmers, that is subsistence farmers, and they constitute the large majority of contributors in agriculture production across the continent. So for us, the most important thing to consider is to provide them with information required to anticipate hazards that include disruptions in the onset and withdrawal of the rainfall, and dry spells within the rainy season. These are specific hazards that need to be anticipated, and measures need to be provided to these smallholder farmers to adapt to these hazards.
Can you tell us a bit about the differences of the measure the African countries need to take by region? I mean, if you are in the Horn of Africa, I guess it's pretty different than the Saharan areas.
Yeah. So to answer that question, we first developed a specific product that we called hazard scenario map for Africa, based on IPCC datasets. So with this map that you can see here, for every region, North Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa, we identify what are the main hazards expected for the 2011-2040 period. And for Northern Africa, specifically here, we are expecting drier December-January period. So this is the most likely hazards that may characterize the coming 30 years period in this part of Africa. Over Southern Africa, we have earlier cessation of the rain. So it is the most likely hazards that will characterize this region. We are now working with experts in the different sectors, agriculture, disaster risk reduction, to identify what measures we can provide to get prepared for these specific hazards per region. So for Sahelian band of Africa, most of the Sahel, the most likely hazard is that the the monsoon season will tend to end later over the central and eastern Sahel. The westernmost part is expected to have a late start of monsoon season. All those elements have to be factored in the agricultural calendar in our countries and the sub-region.
Okay, now with your map we can understand the risk of the different regions of Africa, but now that you know the risk, do you think that the developed country, like North country, needs to give more money to the African countries in order to deal with this hazard that you were talking about?
Yes, from our assessment, we can actually give a quantitative estimate on the level of increase in terms of frequency and intensity of those events. And resources for disaster risk reduction as well as climate change assessment that are dedicated to local communities should actually invest in making sure that this information is communicated to the local farmer with measures that should be implemented at that level to address or reduce impacts of these hazards, which are increasing in intensity and frequency in the future.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much.